Okay, we are reading Far Journeys by Robert Monroe. We are on chapter 3, page number 29 of the book and page number 20 of the PDF.
What does the Gateway program really do for an individual? It varies so much that each seems to find his own answer. Many, of course, have come on the possibility that they will have an out of body experience. Most of the time, this expectation is not fulfilled during the session itself. Instead, they gain profound insights and understanding of the purposes behind their being and doing. Not at all unusual are life changing peak experiences or moments of revelation never before encountered and which neither cannot nor need be repeated.
Okay, so even now, even today, most of the people who come for the Gateway Voyage, they've read Robert Monroe's books, The Journeys Out of the Body, and they want to experience the out of body experience. Having said that, the Institute has shifted from the specific focus on out of body experience to accessing states of expanded consciousness. The shift has very, very clearly taken place in the Institute. And this can be seen in the books by Robert Monroe also. In the first book, it was all about OBE. In the second book, it was more about phasing. In the third book, it's about I here and I there. Okay. Fantastic concept and amazingly described when we are going into these higher states of consciousness, what happens in ultimate journeys. Now, most of the people don't have an out of body experience in the program, but they experience certain things which they have not experienced before, and that experience stays with them. I mean, most of you, whoever has done the excursion workshop also, that feeling that you got when you went into F10 for the first time or you went into F12 for the first time, that feeling stays with you. And that is something that you can access later on at any time you want because of the encodings that you get. And it really is a profound state of consciousness.
The program itself teaches the focus 10 state, mind awake, body asleep. Participants also learn to move into what is called focus 12, where all physical data input is shut off and the consciousness can reach out and begin to perceive in ways other than through the five senses. The action really begins here, where perspectives and overviews change drastically. It is here where the participant truly understands that he is more than his physical body.
So, of course, focus 10 is the state of mind awake, body asleep, where you start actually getting an incline that you can operate without your body. So, your mind can be awake and your body can be asleep. So, many people actually hear themselves snore in this particular state of consciousness. But the real expansion starts taking place when you go into focus 12, where you can actually access guidance and information, and you truly feel that you are more than your physical body.
The Gateway program thus has evolved into a unique process of self exploration and discovery. It surmounts the fear barrier of the unknown of change, which seems to be the greatest cultural restraint on individual growth. Think of where you are now as a clearing in a dark forest. We call it C1 consciousness. We then take you into the forest to a point where you can still see the familiar clearing. That point is a guidepost, focus 10. After a sufficient number of runs between guidepost and clearing, the fear disappears. At the focus 10 guidepost, you always know you can get back to the clearing if you get uncomfortable for any reason.
So, the first thing that we need to transcend whenever we are doing anything new is the fear barrier, because there's always a fear of the unknown, whether we like it or not. That fear of the unknown is always there. This is the same thing that we talked about in Magical Child, where the child, when the child wants to, start exploring the external world, will always keep in view the mother. They'll take a few steps, maybe 10 steps further away from the mother, and then look back whether the mother is still there. Then he'll do something, then he'll again look back the mother is there or not. And then he'll come back running to the mother. He'll stay with the mother for some time, then he'll again go and explore something else. So the same thing happens with us also. When we are going into these expanded states, there is a fear that what will happen. Like Shimangla mentioned, I used to talk about going out of body, etc. And she used to say, if you don't come back, what happens? So this is a question that most people actually have, that if I get out of body, then what will happen? Having said that, having conducted so many programs now, we've never lost anyone. Everyone has always come back. Now, once we have crossed the fear barrier, that is when the magic starts to happen.
From the Focus 10 guidepost, another point is established deeper into the forest and probably out of sight of the clearing. This we call Focus 12. After several runs between guideposts 10 and 12, this too becomes familiar and secondary fears fade away. You know that even if you can't perceive the clearing, see one. From Focus 12, you can see Focus 10, and from 10, you know the way back to C1. The process is expanded to succeeding guideposts, each deeper and different, beyond ever expanding limits.
So again, where we are right now is called C1 consciousness, and we are constantly going further and further and further away, but keeping in mind the roadmap, right? So when we go from step one, when we go into step two, we can see step one from step two, and from step one, we can see the ground floor, right? So this is like the ground floor, and we keep going ahead and we keep going further and further and further away, but the roadmap is set. The neural pathways in the brain are also set. So we can go back from the furthest reach and then come back into this state of consciousness.
With the fear barrier dissolved, one of the greatest gifts to the human species comes into full play: curiosity. With the tools provided, the participant is then free to do as he wishes. He accepts the authority to do so and the responsibility.
So now this is very important. Once we have transcended the fear barrier, then we can exercise our curiosity. But with curiosity and with that exploration comes responsibility also. So we need to be responsible for our actions. So we need to take responsibility. We need to be actively involved in the process. If we depend on someone else, then again it becomes a problem. So this is where the game of self empowerment starts to come in. That we need to empower ourselves to be able to do what we want to do.
The individual, of his own accord, without suggestion but through direct experience, begins to know rather than believe that he does survive physical death. It doesn't make any difference what he does during his physical life, what he believes he will go on after his physical body dies.
So now, as you experience these expanded states, one of the things that naturally starts to happen is that you start knowing that you exist after death, because you know that you can operate without the physical body. When that happens, it's a huge jump, because your fear of death starts to go away. And that is one of the primordial fears that we have, that we will not survive death. And that is something which naturally happens in this program, right? Because you start experiencing the fact that you can exist without your physical body.
Survival beyond physical death is not a belief system, therefore, but a simple fact as natural as being born. There is no dogma related to the Gateway program, except that when you begin this session, you should seriously consider that you are more than your physical body.
So again, The only thing that in the Monroe Institute program that we ask you to accept before you start the program is that you are more than your physical body. And this is something that you experience also in the program. But in the beginning, we ask you to accept that. Once you start off from that belief, ultimately it becomes a knowing. Okay. So there's a shift from believing someone to getting to know, and then it becomes your experiential experience, and then no one can take it away from you.
It is inevitable that the borders between this and other reality, energy systems, are crossed. Many of the results are reported as reunions with dead friends and family, as well as encounters with other forms of intelligent energy, not generally recognized or accepted by mainstream American cultural levels.
So over here it says the inevitable that the borders between this and other reality systems are crossed. So the analogy over here is in the olden times when we had those TVs, where you had that antenna and there were 10 channels, you had to do something called fine tuning. Otherwise, you were seeing the picture of one channel and the sound of the other channel. Okay. So over here, what is happening? When we are going into these expanded states, as the bands are meeting, there is no strict separation from one floor to the other floor. There is a overlap. There's always an overlap. And when we are coming into that frequency, we can start perceiving into the other band, where let us say the people who have actually left the physical body and transcended into another form of reality, we can actually start observing that in these explorations that we have in the programs. And it's very real, let me tell you. People who have experienced it, they actually understand, they communicate, they can see, they can hear, they can actually and some people can even touch. You feel the touch also. So again, that becomes very real for you, right?
Again, if you are aware of the basic effect of the hemisync process, that of providing an access to many levels of consciousness simultaneously, something far different from the usual consciousness that we use for the most part in our daily lives, you can begin to grasp some of the potential results.
So again, hemisync allows you to access various states of consciousness simultaneously. Again, the analogy is that you have a radio receiver in your car, right? And there are hundreds of channels playing. Whichever channel you're tuning your radio to, that is the sound which comes in. But the other sounds are all existing. So it's a matter of focusing your attention to whichever frequency that you're focusing on. That is what will manifest in your life. So all the frequencies are existing, all these states of consciousness are existing simultaneously. So technically speaking, we can exist in all the states of consciousness simultaneously. But where we focus our attention, that is what becomes our reality.
Through the Gateway program, we have been able to conduct tests with the hemisync process with over 3,000 subjects over the past 10 years. With a minimum of 20 individual test exercises per subject participant, that comes out to 60,000 plus individual tests of the effectiveness of the method and techniques involved. That has been and is the basic value to us of the Gateway program, a test base of 60,000. At the very least, we know that we have been able to put people to sleep 60,000 times and awaken them. That is a pretty good statistic for product testing, especially one that is non invasive in its physiological impact.
Of course, now hundreds of thousands of people have gone through the process. This was naturally written, when was this? Far Journeys was written in, uh, when was it published? Yeah, 85 it was published. So, I mean, after that, hundreds of programs, thousands of programs have been conducted.
Most significant is the analysis of the gateway population, those who have attended the sessions over the past 8 years. First, 41% are male. This is double the norm for the typical self awareness workshop. Most researchers agree this is due to the scientific aspect of the hemisync process as against more esoteric origins. Second, 29% are what we label professionals, psychologists, psychiatrists, educators, scientists, in their own eras of engineers, etc. These attend principally to determine possible application in their own areas of interest. Third, the average age is 39, which puts Gateway completely out of the age range of the faddist and intransient group. Finally, 83% attend for one basic reason and come away with another, more valuable result.
So, like over here, I don't think we have hardly any men in this call, right? Now, mostly what happens is that these things are attended more with the ladies. But what we are finding is that the Monroe Institute bucks the trend. And now, in fact, this ratio of 29% male has gone up in the institute to 60% male. There are more males attending the programs than female people. And that's a huge thing actually, because it shows that the male side is more logical. They operate more, they want proof, right? And the females are more right brain, they have more right brain predominance. So naturally, for these kind of things, the female people are more active than males. But this is bucked at the institute. And the last line, he says 83% attend for one basic reason and come away with another, a more valuable result, right? So when you're going into these expanded states, something profound can happen with you. And I am saying this over and over again, that profound and very subtle shifts start taking place in people who have attended the excursion or the gateway voyage. And especially once you've attended 2 6-day programs, you can remarkably see shifts taking place in your life. And it is very subtle, it just happens, there is no effort, it happens effortlessly. That's why he says very clearly, more valuable results take place.
The best way that we can report the meaning of Gateway is give you some of the reports that we have received relative to the program from those who have attended. Here are a few of these. 1135 centimeter. The most thrilling experience for me was with Focus 15 on increased vibrations. I felt the energy flow going slowly up on one side and down on the other side of my body, then faster and faster. I felt I would become a spiral, then a point, and so I did. And as a compact unit, I was flying higher and higher. But then I thought, I cannot go any further, any higher. And in a flash, I hear, hey, you limit yourself. Okay, then I overcame, accepted, and off I was. I felt projected like a Sputnik into the universe, to the stars, another entity integrated in the all. Feeling this oneness was an indescribable joy and happiness.
So this is like I don't know how many of you all have seen the movie Matrix. When Neo starts to understand who he is and what he can do, he he breaks the limiting belief system that he carried about himself, and he can start dodging bullets. And ultimately, he just stops, and the bullets stop, and he taps the bullets and he drops them off. And his hands move so fast that it is unimaginable that anyone can move the hand so fast, right? So, over here, when we are going into expanded states, we are only limited in what we can achieve and do in these states by our own belief system. And that is what we need to transcend. So Robert Monroe always used to say, we have to get out of our box. The box is the belief system. The more holes we poke in our box, and then we'll again go into a bigger box. We poke holes in that, we'll go into a bigger box, right? Because our belief is what creates the box. So we need to get rid of our belief system ultimately.
The deep lesson I took from this exercise was that although having heard and read many times that we are what we think, that we limit ourselves by our mind, there I was experiencing something unique, at least for me, by overcoming doubts or limitations which I am solely responsible for.
So we are ourselves responsible for our limiting belief system, and we need to understand the belief system and then ultimately drop it.
1644. That morning, having lost interest in holding the solar system in my hands, can't believe I just said that. As the tape had directed me to do, I visualized the Focus 15 blue door. Finding nothing there, I proceeded through red, yellow, pink, green, purple, and finally into white. Using white as level 21, I continued to 26, where I then and have since received messages for other people in the program. I later moved to 27, where I had previously found my father. Feeling that he was busy, I decided to try uncharted territory to me. Devising a digital counter, I sailed backward through darkness as the counter flashed numbers faster than I could read them. Somewhere near where I perceived to be 100, 98, I stopped and saw many people milling around. They looked like holograms, but conveyed the message of being alive. Some ignored me, some moved away, but several approached me with great joy. I sensed that the latter felt that they were stranded and thought that I was there to guide them back. I asked about the others and was told that some were just exploring and would return to their bodies when they felt like doing so, while others were waiting for their bodies to die so they could be free. The one speaking to me, though, said that they got there inadvertently and were not able to return on their own.
So in that expanded state, he has met people there, okay? Consciously aware entities, you could say, for lack of a better way to explain it. Now, some were there because they were stuck and they could not find their way back. Some were there, their bodies were like in coma and they were hanging around over there waiting for the body to die. Some were there, they were just exploring. Some were wanting to go back and do other stuff, right? So there are many kinds of people, many kinds of entities in these expanded states which you encounter, and then you can actually communicate with them also.
I really liked this one particular observation that guy says that I in 27 he feels that his father is busy.
Correct.
There is a life there. This is what.
Correct.
Mm,
Absolutely. We know that
yeah,
people who have done the Lifeline program have experienced 27
yeah,
and things, people are busy in 27. It's not that, you're
huh,
doing stuff there.
yeah, yeah.
So just so that both all of you, I mean, people who've not done the excursion workshop, you have the first level of consciousness that we explore. It is called focus level 10, which is mind awake, body asleep. The next level of consciousness that we explore is focus level 12, which is called expanded awareness. Then we explore focus 15, which is a state of no time, where all time exists, all past life experiencing, that all these past life regression, etc., all take place in focus 15. Then after that, you have over here, he mentions, I the blue door of focus 15, I find nothing there, and then I go through the red, yellow, pink, green, purple, and finally into the white. So red is 16, yellow is 17, pink is 18, green is 19, purple is 20, and the white is 21. So 21 is the next focus level that we really talk about. Apart from 18 is also talked about in Monroe programs. 21 is the edge of physical reality, where you really start experiencing that you can exist totally without your physical body. It is also called the bridge level, which goes into the higher focus level. So he mentions over here focus 26, and then he mentions focus 27. Focus 27 was called the park. That is where you go there and you decide what you're going to do next. You create a space for yourself, and all sorts of things happen in Focus 27.
At this time, at this point, Bob, I heard your barely audible voice saying, "You will now return to focus 10." In panic, I felt I needed your voice to find my way back. I tried to piggyback someone, but was not able to, and returned to my check unit in what I felt was the nick of time, with a great sigh of relief and an expletive or two. I re examined the experience, and I am doing so again at the moment of this writing.
So check unit. Check unit is the place where in the institute we do all our exercises. It also serves as the bed at night, and naturally we are lying down when we are doing the exercises. So you lie in your check unit during the day during the exercises. It's called Controlled Holistic Environmental Chamber. So and the acronym has become check unit. Controlled Holistic Environmental Chamber.
1. I don't believe that it was a dream. As I type this 2 weeks after the event took place, I'm still overcome with a feeling of profoundness. 2. I don't believe in coincidence. Although the implications are not clear to me, I feel that there is a reason I experienced something I had never consciously thought about before. 3. Fact. There are people in various institutions who are catatonic or comatose and whom medical science has not been able to reanimate.
So, when you experience these states, there is a distinct difference that you perceive when you have a dream and this experience that you have when you go into these expanded states. Okay. And that feeling is also very profound. As I told you, that when you experience that focus of the experience, or you experience focus 10 for the first time, you experience focus 12 for the first time, standard reply by 90% of the excursion graduates is, we did not want to come back, right? Because that place feels so peaceful, it feels so like home, that you don't want to come back. So over here he clearly says, I'm still overcome by the feeling of profoundness. Okay. And also you tend to experience stuff that you consciously did not think of. So naturally, when you're consciously not thinking of something and it is happening from below the line. And that itself creates a profundity in the experience and a kind of an understanding that this was something that I was meant to experience. That is why I have come for this particular experience. And also, because we are encountering these entities in various states of consciousness, many people who are in coma are actually, you can encounter them in that expanded state, and you can actually converse with them also in that particular expanded state. Okay, now if anyone has any questions about all this, please just unmute and ask. Okay, because we are reading the book for clarification, to understand what the process is all about. So if you're not understanding something, please ask, otherwise we are not achieving what we are wanting to do.
4659. I am now considering what to me is the strong possibility that almost anything that can be formed into five physical senses, language oriented though thought, is an illusion. Extra physical feeling is as close as I can come to describing what is ultimate reality for me now.
So as I explained, that what you experience in these expanded states feels really more real than what we are experiencing in the physical five states, right? Because you actually have the power of creativity over there. You can create anything that you want. And ultimately, what is there? When we look at science also, what is everything made out of? It's all, we feel that things around us are solid. But when we going down into particle physics, actually everything is space. It's just an energy field. So naturally, we feel, in this state of consciousness, we do not have that much of power of creativity. But over there, we can do what we want. We become much more powerful. So, what does that explain? That our physical senses are very limited, and the extra physical senses which are there can really, we can, by using them, we can really achieve a lot of stuff.
When I seek to perceive ultimate reality for me, what I think you are referring to when you use the word home, I experience blankness and bliss. Blankness not because it is blank, but because I attempt to experience it with mental processes that are geared to the five physical senses that are in the habit of perceiving illusion. I am trying to use my biological illusion computer to perceive beyond the apparent limits of illusion. Like trying to smell a flower with your ear, I experience bliss because emotional feeling is the only perceptual tool that I am able to use to sense beyond the illusion. If there are other perceptual tools that are available to me, they are either atrophied by lack of use and must somehow be reactivated, or they must be initially activated.
So what is he talking about here now? He's talking about Maya. But the first thing that we need to do to transcend Maya is to start disassociating from our five physical senses. Because this is the computer that we've been using all the time, and we are so used to using it that we do not have the ability to use other senses or that expanded perceptions to perceive stuff. So the expanded states have to be activated. The hemisync process allows you to experience that and gives you tools to be able to go into those states to actually start using those states on a regular basis. Now, the point here comes is that most meditative practice take decades for you to come to a state of consciousness which is blank. Because if I want to transcend the sensory perception of the five physical senses, it needs to be cut off, right? Otherwise, there's constant chatter going on in our conscious awareness. Now, if I can go into that blank state, that is when I can access those expanded states. And let me tell you, 90% or 95% of the excursion participants, after two exercises, there is no thought, right? So stuff or other practices which take decades for you to achieve that state, people achieve it in exactly two exercises. Okay. What I'd like you all to do is, people who have experienced that blank state in two exercises, can you just type on the chat yes? People, I'm sure a lot of you have experienced the excursion. Can you just type on the chat yes, so that we know that, okay, so many people have actually experienced it? Only three. Okay, so a lot of you have not done the excursion workshop, it seems. Okay, now it's coming slowly. Right. So I'm sure that most of you would have actually experienced it. And the point here is, and this is something that I encounter all the time when I tell people that, you'll experience. I tell people that what took me 25 years to experience, you actually experience it in 2 days time. They say that you're cheating. How can you do that? Then my question to them is that, suppose you had to travel from Calcutta to Bombay, how would you travel today? They would immediately, they'll say, we'll get on a plane and fly. I said, okay, well, why are you flying? Why don't you walk? Now, if I have tools and technology with me which can allow me to experience these profound states safely without any risk factors, and come back to normal consciousness, and also develop tools which can allow me to access them at will, okay, what is the harm in using it? That's why I keep saying that everyone must do the excursion workshop, because these are the states which you can experience so simply and easily, and then it becomes very real for you. You know that yes, this exists. In most other practices, you do stuff, but you really don't know where you're going. Here, the subjective and the objective experience of people is so similar across the board that it is not funny.
During one reball breathing exercise, I experienced what was the beginning of some rather puzzling happenings. For reasons unknown to me, I was suddenly in a black box, a void of total blackness. It was like being juggled from one extreme to the other, from total sensation to lack of sensation. Frustration began to invade me, for I found it was somewhat difficult finding a way out of this vast blackness. In my next state, I began to experience the blackness again, and that's when I started to worry. At our next meal, I mentioned what was occurring to our trainer, hoping she might offer a solution.
Okay.
During,
So at times, what of course, this is a different case altogether. Okay, and there's a very funny story in that. But many times when we go into these expanded states, because we are not able to consciously understand what we are experiencing, the first thing that we experience is a blankness, right? And then the magic starts to happen. Although this is a totally separate case and it's a very funny story.
during our discussion, my problem was overheard by a few males at the table who had apparently been listening in. Later, one of the men took me aside to explain. He told me that a few of the men in our group had found themselves fantasizing about me during their own tape experiences, hence all the sexual thought vibrations I was picking up. He also told me that, having a hard time dealing with their sexual attraction, they were putting me in their energy conversion box, a place to leave problems behind before embarking into the other states of consciousness. They had all helped me, put me in my black void so as to not to distract them. At first, I was annoyed at this. How dare they influence my experiences? How dare their sexual energy have that much control over me? I still marvel at how powerful thoughts are, and three men's directed at me was overwhelming. At the same time, I felt somewhat naive for not having picked up the signs earlier, but I was much too wrapped in how the workshop was changing me to fully get into what others were thinking.
So now in the workshop, there is something called the preparatory process. And in one of the steps of the preparatory process, we ask you to imagine an imaginary box with a heavy lid, and into that box put everything that is distracting you and is not relevant to the exercise that you're going to be doing, right? So now these men, they were getting distracted by this lady, so they started putting the lady into the box. And because they were putting the lady into the box, that lady was experiencing only black, because the inside the box there's no light, right? So she can't see anything. Now the next step in this,
So this lady should now be putting all the men into the box. Those three men.
the point is that you see, you need to understand, you can't put people into the box. What
Yeah.
is actually troubling you
Huh.
is the thought about the people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you need to put your thoughts into the box, not the person into the box.
True.
But this was not the end. I transformed my annoyance at being used as a sex object, even if only consciously projected, and started wondering what growth could be gained from this experience. It started me thinking along other lines, and what was to follow would change the course of my life.
So again, it is operating from the left side of the grid or the right side of the grid. Now, this was happening. She could get annoyed and get very irritated by it, which is the left side of the grid. Now she's saying that what can I learn from this experience, which is totally putting her on the right side of the grid.
And it happened simply because I asked the divine forces in all sincerity for me to be able to experience spiritual love. I asked not for me to be the recipient of it, but that I might learn how to give to others to my fullest ability. My request was granted. As I went into the next step, I kept that thought in mind. I wanted to feel what it would be like to feel a part of the love in the universe, to, in a sense, actually be making love to a part of me, a part of everyone. I left my own check unit at that point, non physically, OOBE, and felt an urge to visit my other gateway participants. Straying into one room, I called softly to one of the people. He seemed taken aback to see me, and I told him not to be alarmed, that I was only there to send him love, and then left after blowing him a quick goodbye kiss. Later, this person recalled that he heard a soft voice in his ear calling his name. He said that he had felt a surge of love upon hearing it, but wasn't sure where it came from.
So now what happened? This lady went out of body. She went into another check unit of another participant. That participant in an altered state was also out of body. He actually perceived her. But when he came back into his own conscious awareness of the 3D reality that we exist in, he was not very sure about what he heard and what he saw, but he had a feeling of it, right? He had an inkling of it.
Then, quite unexpectedly, I was suddenly drawn by a powerful force to one room in particular, to one check unit in particular. It took me by total surprise, for the man in that unit was someone I didn't know very well. In fact, he was the only one at the workshop I had never really had a chance to talk to. He was a young, good looking psychologist, yet for some reason we seemed to be purposely avoiding each other.
So again, what also happens is that there is a connection between some people. And although they are aware of it, they are scared to act on it. Okay. That also lands up creating a problem. So this man was there. She, in the physical world, she had observed him, but she had not gone and interacted with him. But in the expanded state, she was drawn by that force. You are attracted to that, and fatak say you can go, you can be in point A, and the next second you can be in point B, like that you can happen. But there is no time. Again, in these expanded states, again, space and time stop to play out the way that it plays out in this 3D reality.
All at once, I had an all knowing, as I seemed to float over him, that his vibrations were my vibrations. I had an overwhelming desire to meld, to feel a part of him, to become one. It was truly one of the sharpest and clearest of experiences.
Just 1 second.
I gave to him both my body and soul until there was this tremendous energy surge that rocked and exploded in us. It was an experience that is beyond words, for love, total and absolute, surrounded us more strongly than can't be earthly experienced or imagined. The more I gave, the greater I received, and I didn't want to let go. I wanted to give him even more. It was like two energies in perfect unison becoming one at last. I can remember thinking how physical sex paled in comparison. Memories of past lives together
One
came
second.
rushing in.
So what did they experience in this last paragraph? We talked about this in Celestine prophecy, in the eighth insight, where you give energy, you give love energy to the other person, and the other persons give love energy to you, and everything starts to expand, 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 expand. So over here, it was an experience. Okay, the more I gave, the greater I received, and I didn't want to let go. So the more we give unconditionally and the more we get back unconditionally makes that entire experience become more profound, and we energize each other. Okay. So, and this happens a lot when we go into these expanded states. The people over there are are normally all compassionate. Okay, they will unconditionally want to help you and give you. So we need to understand that when we go into these expanded states.
Memories of past lives together came rushing in like flashes of light. We talked in this state, and I came to realize this experience could only have happened at the end of the workshop as it did, for each of us would have been distracted had we met earlier on, perhaps hampering other growth experiences that week. There was a meeting of both our minds with this experience, and I knew our meeting had been more than coincidence. It was predestined.
So memories of past life together came rushing in. Okay. So there is something called a soul group. This is something that we experience in Focus 27 when we go there. And many of us, like we are sitting together here, right? Many of us may have experienced past lives together, and we have experienced tens of thousands of past lives. It's not that we've experienced one or two past lives. This is what makes, going into a past life regression thing makes it very passe for me, because we've had so many past lives. You're going into one of them. How is it going to matter? The idea here is to be able to go into this expanded state and automatically go to the past life yourself, to what really matters to you. That becomes even more important. And we are all connected in some way or the other, right? In some life you may have been my father, in some life you may have been my mother, you may have been my lover, you may have been my wife, you may have been my child, you may have been my servant, you may have been my chartered accountant, you may have been my doctor. So we are all there to experience many experiences. So all of us are experiencing these experiences, and we switch also. It's not that we have only one kind of relationship. We switch. So over here, all the memories started flashing in as soon as they made that connection in that expanded state. And naturally, they're not used to it, right? So if you've made that connection and then you start behaving like that in the 3D reality, again it will create problems. So that's why this happened at the end of the experience. Let me tell you, I've experienced this where I've started really connecting and understanding that this person was my mother and this person was my father and this person was my son. In the 3D reality, if you start behaving like that with those people, then they do not understand that you're behaving from that aspect, and it can create all sorts of problems for you. And I went through hell for about 2 years. Okay, then I switched the switch off. I don't want to see. So unless I open the switch and I want to see, I really don't bother. I'm more concerned about what is the relationship that we have in this 3D reality rather than in the previous one. But yes, if you have a past life connection, automatic affinity starts to happen with that particular person.
I truly experienced everything I asked for and more. And when I came down to the meeting room after the tape, there was an unusual heightened energy where people seemed to be flying. I saw him as I came down the stairs to join the group, and he looked at me excitedly, ecstatically, as if something totally incredible had happened to him. I hadn't said a word yet, as he quietly repeated a number of times, "Thank you, thank you." I felt elated. I had made contact. We compared our individual experiences, making sure each of us was not coloring the other's story. It didn't matter, our stories fit like puzzle pieces, matching, matching. Sorry. Perfectly and interlocking. We both had also had the use of all our senses, the strongest being touch. After this experience, we were later reunited to share others together. We've been with each other for the past 2 years now, growing and loving together. So much did I learn at my gateway experience, but I was truly lucky to get it all. I not only got the icing, I got the whole cake.
So again, there is something called shared experiences, and many times in the in I think in exploration 27, you actually make a plan with each other to meet in that expanded state, and then you write down your experience and you post it to each other. This also starts to happen. So there are, when we go into these expanded states, we can have partnered experiences, we can have shared experiences. That becomes very, very important in the long run.
Today, the Gateway program is held for a full 7-day period at our center facility in Virginia. The center is designed specifically to handle the Gateway program. No longer does one have to lie on the floor for taped exercises. Instead, the center now provides what are called check units, controlled holistic environmental chambers, which provide isolation much as we had in our original laboratory booths. Not only are the taped exercises conducted by headphones in the check unit, but the participant actually sleeps in these during the night. Because it is much like a Pullman berth on the old railroad trains. Some people initially feel they cannot sleep in there the first night because of a sense of claustrophobia, perhaps. With the environmental treatment in the check unit, fresh air and temperature control, plus sleep sounds that are available, the main problem after the second night is to wake them up. The isolated sleep has been so productive and restful. It helps achieve such a complete sleep that a number of participants have built check units in their own homes.
Okay, so many people who are have claustrophobia, when they first go to the institute, they say, no, I can't sleep in this. And let me tell you, I've experienced this myself, that second day they don't want to get out of the check unit. They feel so comfortable inside the check unit.
Because the Gateway program is so difficult to produce and conduct properly, each year we question the value of continuing it. All things considered, it is certainly not a financial success, although supposedly we are the only research facility that charges for the privilege of being a volunteer. Each time we consider closing it down, we receive just coincidentally another report from a graduate who states how meaningful and how constructive have been the results of his attendance. So we schedule another year of gateways.
So now, of course, this has been repeated. Now, of course, it's become a very structured program. And of course, it's being conducted now, I think, in 13 or 14 different countries, the Gateway Voyage. The excursion, of course, is conducted in some 40 odd countries now. So naturally, things are moving ahead. Okay, I think we can stop here. It's already 15:12. Yeah, 3:12.
Okay.
Anyone has any questions, anything to say?